On this week's episode of the RAG podcast, I was joined by Amar Chohan. Amar is my business partner at Hoxo Media and also my best friend. We've known each other for about 16 years. This week, we met in university in Sheffield back in 2004. And our lives have been remarkably similar ever since, really. We both studied together, became teachers together, later became recruiters together, and started Hoxo together. The reason I wanted Amar on the show is there's a number of reasons. Firstly, often Hoxo has been all about me online. I've been the face of it, been obviously the podcast, the video content, etc. And Amar's been in the back seat. So it's nice I wanted you guys to hear from his side what it's been like working both with me and the business, but also without being the front face of Hoxo, what it's like being behind the scenes. Also, the reason we started a business and what the main catalyst for that was back in 2014 when Amar had a really unfortunate news of finding out that his dad had passed away in a freak accident. I was with him when he found out. It was horrendous back in November 2014. And it changed both his life and mine forever. It made us think that life was too short. It was all about starting a business in the future. It had to happen. And then we went on this incredible journey of doing so. Now, he was able to manage through that period better than I could imagine anyone. So strong, so calm, yet quite open about it as well. So we talked at length about losing his father and what it mattered, what it did to him, and also how it's affected him moving forward. And I really hope anyone listening to this episode can get value from it. I mean, we've all got difficult things going on in our lives. We've all got to deal with bereavement at some point. So I hope you can take strength from Amar's story. And also learn a little bit more about us as well. So without further ado, Amar, welcome to the RAG podcast.
Sure. Thank you for having me. Business therapy with Sean Anderson.
It's a bit Here we go. This is probably the weirdest episode I've ever recorded, to have you on it, my business partner, the guy that I talk to probably every day. Well, I definitely talk to you every day. So it's like people are just having a weird listening in on one of our one-to-ones, I think.
I hope so, mate. I hope so. There's a lot to listen into.
There is. Well, look, for the listeners' benefit, you are definitely more out there than you were, I'd say. But traditionally in our business, you've not been as I've been the face and, out there shouting out, and you've been more behind the scenes. So not everyone might not know who you are and what you do. So tell us who you are and what you do.
Right. Amar Chohan, COO, co-founder, Hoxo Media. What do I do at Hoxo Media? Probably the James Milner of Hoxo Media. I reckon I played every position under
Gary Neville.
Gary Neville.
Phil Neville. Phil Neville.
No, Phil Neville was versatile. Yeah. But at the moment, I'd say the way I look at the job is, I think finance, HR, recruitment tends to fall into my function, but more so sales and bringing business into Hoxo. And you are right. I'm trying to do more from a social point. I'm following the academy, and it's been good. I've enjoyed it.
You've seen literally everything, right? You've seen everything I've been up to. You've seen everything we've been up to, and so it's weird. I also realised it's this week. I think it's 16 years ago yesterday that we probably met. It was Monday the 24th of September, or Sunday the 24th of September. I moved to Sheffield, and I've
known you for more than nearly half my life.
Yeah,
basically half my life. Yeah.
So we both went to Sheffield Hallam Uni, and we both we stayed in the same hall, so we went on the same course. We eventually did a very similar course, but I just remember. We met, I think we got chatting on a night out on the first. We came back to the halls drunk, and then we were chatting. And then for the rest of the weeks, someone on my side of the corridor was like, that Indian guy keeps knocking on your door. I was like, he likes me, this guy. And,
just trying to make mates, boy from Nuneaton, knew very little out there, and just try to make mates as quick as possible. And I heard that you were in the first team in the football team, so I had to try to. I wasn't
quite in it yet at that point, but yeah, God, it does feel like a lifetime ago. Probably weighed about 3 stone heavier, and oh God, had darker hair.
I think we literally must have put on about 2 stone in 3 months, I think.
Oh, at least
in
that first year. Hang on. Yeah, definitely probably put on about 3 stone in the first 3. I remember coming back to Manchester the first Christmas of uni, and I was like, I think I've put a bit of weight on. And then one of my mates was like, not what have you ate? Who have you ate? I was like, I think I was at least.
I had the same. I remember coming back, and Alki, one of my mates at home, and he just kept on calling me fatty. And I'd always been fairly, slim as a growing up in my teen years, etc. And I was like, he kept on calling me Tubby, and I was thinking, he said it about 6 times now, and I definitely, I reckon, probably in 3 months, about 2 stone, must have. But you've got to admit, our diet was horrendous, right? We just come into uni, we knew very little about how to look after ourselves, and we were sat eating doner kebabs and pizzas every night. And
fun though, wasn't it? Great fun.
Great fun.
So Amar was actually with me. So for those of you that don't know, I've actually been in Ibiza for the last 5 weeks. So I'm back in the UK Sunday, and today is Tuesday. And Amar came out to see me last week. So I spent the last week in Ibiza, which was cool. And it felt like, God, we're different than them days. We're 16 years older, right? I mean, Ibiza's quiet, but we had a few beers, and I think we struggled to go beyond a few beers, whereas back in the day, it would turn into all sorts.
Yeah, to be fair, and it's a change of life once as well, I think, after a while. Mentally, it doesn't sit well. And when you've got so much going on from a work front, it's just difficult to function. So I think we've definitely cut back from what we used to.
Business is at a point where it is the biggest we've ever been, the most stressful we've ever been. We were talking about this just before we started recording. We're at like critical mass point where all areas of our business are just moving forward, and it's exciting, but it's important to look back sometimes, I think, where we come from. So we've got an incredibly similar background in terms of the journey through. We went through uni, we became teachers. So I was a PE teacher, and Amar was a primary school teacher. Tell us about why did you get into teaching? What was the reason you decided to get into teaching?
I'll be honest, I don't think I knew what it was that I wanted to do for so long. I knew I was quite academic in my early years, and then I reckon year 8, year 9, academia just didn't, for something, there was a switch in my head that just went. And I love sports. I loved all sports. I used to sit there back in the day. We didn't have Sky, so I used to sit there watching teletext for the football results and the run by run cricket results as well. But I loved all sports. I loved being out playing sports, and my mum was a teacher, and I reckon that probably had a little bit of an impact to why I went down that route. But it was all very last minute. I remember I'd even getting into college very last minute. I had the grades, but again, no idea what I wanted to do. Everything was last minute, but it all kind of worked itself out. And I think we've always had the motto of we'll work it out, and it probably drives my partner Jess up the wall. But I've always believed it, right? We work it out. And I think I got into the college at the very last day. I got into uni right at the last day, and I just stumbled across it. And
so obviously we both did a similar course. So Amar's was a PE teaching course, but you became a primary school teacher. I did a sports course that turned me into a PE teacher, but I didn't go to uni to do that. I kind of fell back on it after a couple of weeks of doing architecture, if you remember. You did decide. So did you go to uni thinking about being a teacher, or did you just think?
Yeah, for sure. PE teaching. I thought I'd be a PE teacher. I did a course which was 3 years PE teaching, albeit my attendance wasn't the best. I scraped with the skin of my teeth for 2-1, and then I went on holiday that year with my family, and it was I don't know if you remember, it was your birthday, and you were having a bit of a shindig over your birthday, and then around 3 or 4 days before your birthday, I was in Gran Canaria, and I'd fractured my back coming off a quad bike on holiday. So I had a compressed fracture on my lumbar one, fractured my shoulder, and that was a big fracture there as well. And
I remember you phoned me. I was getting ready for my 21st, and you were on the phone, and you sounded a bit crackly. You were like, "I'm not going to make it," because I was having a pre-night with my family, and then the lads were meeting up on the Saturday. I think you rang me on the Friday afternoon. It was like, "Yeah, I'm not going to be there tomorrow." I was like, "Wow, something you like? I've broke my back," and I was like, "What? You drove off a cliff on a quad bike?"
Yeah, it was
lucky to have survived.
Scary. Oh well, about a minute, but it was so hot as well. So we were off-roading on this quad bike, and a minute before, I'd literally just put my helmet on. I wasn't wearing a helmet all that time, and then I hit a rock, came off the side, flew off the side of the cliff, and then looked up, and the quad had carried on going and landed on top of me. So, I mean, you're talking a minute of life and death in a way, because if I didn't have a helmet on, it would have been a no-go. But back to your question around teaching and how. I mean, I always thought PE teaching would be the one, but when I got back, I mean, I had 6 months of basically recovery at the time. And then I think you had a couple of jobs in sales. You were knocking on doors, doing what you do best. You're doing what you do best. And then I got a job as a TA, like a teaching assistant, when I first got back to Sheffield. And then I did about that for about six months, I think, and converted you to do something quite similar, I think, after that.
So then we went on a similar journey, didn't we? We did teaching from, I think, 2008 to 2010 when we went traveling. So we went traveling in the winter of 2000. So exactly 10 years ago now. It's October 2010. But one of the things I think we showed back then, I remember, was we did have a slightly entrepreneurial spirit, but we didn't know what the hell we were talking about. So,
well, we had all the time in the world, but no money to do anything with it. I think like we had 2 weeks holidays for Easter holidays. We had
6
half-term breaks. We had the 6 weeks period. And do you remember when we used to sit there, literally in the back garden? We had a little loads of little stones, and we used to throw stones in this pit for hours and hours a day, just thinking of new business ideas. And we thought we struck gold that time when we came up with Manny. Sports Manny.
So we decided that the funny thing was, neither of us, I don't know if you'd done it, but I definitely didn't do business studies. I had no idea. I'd never thought about profit, loss, business, sales, anything. It was teaching, and that was it. But we knew we wanted to make more than just teachers, I think, financially, as well as more from life. And we decided sports nanny was the business. It was going to be a male nanny service to look after overweight kids from rich families, wasn't it? And we would, that was it. Not only would we look after the kids when the parents were working, we would get them fit.
But the funny thing was, by the time the idea had come to completion, 6 weeks of planning it out, we'd have to go back to school. So like, time was up, and then we'd just be off onto the other thing. Do you remember also I was always wanting to be thrifty and make money like in different ways, and I told you I was going to be a tutor.
Yeah, I remember that.
Remember, I got a load of business cards printed off, and I'd spelt physical education wrong. Like I think the Y was missing in physical. Yeah, and I had all these business cards, so my short-term career as a tutor came to an end as well.
That was in London, wasn't it?
No, it was in Sheffield, still in Sheffield days.
I'm interrupting this podcast to give you another update from our sponsor, Audro. The team at Audro have launched another feature in summer 2020, and it's going to be a game changer. This is going to massively change the way the recruitment agency market operates globally for the future. They've called it Audro Producer. This platform sits alongside the company's award-winning video interview opportunity and gives you, the recruiter, the ability to create engaging, eye-catching video content ready to share in a matter of minutes. So you can record or upload a video, and then you can add banners, overlays, images, subtitles, logos, so that you can create these eye-catching videos that are built for LinkedIn. So whether you're interviewing, whether you're doing sales messaging, or you're just trying to put out valuable content online, then Audro is no longer just a video interview platform. It's also a content creation platform for recruiters. Get in touch with Audro today to see how you can implement this into your recruitment agency ASAP. Thanks for listening. Let's get back to the show. We've got so much we could talk about. We've not got that long. So I'm like, we went off traveling, and then we traveled Asia. We landed in Australia, and both of us became recruiters, right? So from your perspective, I've told my story recently on the Pete Watson podcast, but tell us, why did you get into recruitment, if you remember Melbourne?
I think we got there and we were doing just a load of random jobs, right? We were ripping up carpet one day. We were in the sports arenas, never watching any of the sports, but just, serving food and eating food at the same time. But we were professionals, right, at the time. And I think that always kind of itches away. And I think your qualification didn't work out there. I was too lazy to get my qualifications to work out there. And I kind of fancied a change. And it was when one of our friends came over, James, and he got a job in recruitment in a matter of, literally, it was a matter of seconds. And they were talking about sponsorship. They were talking about being, and the money that we were talking about was so much more. I think at the time, $50,000 as a basic salary. I mean, we'd come from very minimal wages as a teacher in north of England. The base alone was wow, right? So I think that was appealing. And then I mean, I think you, me, and Jake, we obviously lived in that little flat together, and I think the three of us had managed to get ourselves in front of about 5 businesses. I mean, we basically had recruited our own positions. We were just on the phone.
You were slobbing. Do you remember?
Yeah, we were just sat
so
there.
To set the tone, we'd all worked in this in Amy Park Stadium, which in Melbourne is the one of the football grounds, right? And we all did the evening when the games were on, the rugby, the football. We'd do the serving food, and then I wanted a bit more money, and I think they saw something in me, so I got a job in the day. Do you remember, in the cafe? And then I started working in a cafe in the day, and then I was basically like the poor traveller that this Australian woman, I think she was actually South African. She was like, take some food home, because she knew I lived with you two. So I lived in this crap flat that was full of, I think we had fleas or something in the flat. My bedroom window looked into my brother's room, which was the worst thing ever. So when he turned the light on in the middle of the night, I thought it was morning, started getting ready every day. But I remember
you became the mother and father of for me and Jake. He'd come in with like a packed sandwiches and stuff. We'd be like, "What's for dinner?"
I'd have like 6 baguettes. I'd have a couple of pies. I'd have muffins. I'd have the inside of like a broth, like in a pot. And then, you and Jake had been on the sofa watching Entourage. But actually, what you started doing was researching recruitment and getting on the phone. And I felt really behind you, I remember, because you guys both were like really far down the line. And I was like, fuck, I need to sort myself out here. But we got jobs in recruitment. And I remember you got into education. So yours was actually really logical, right? You've been a teacher.
It was relevant.
Recruit education. I went into IT and knew nothing about it. And that was difficult. But
I had the option, didn't I? I mean, by the time we'd gone out and interviewed at 4 or 5 places, we had multiple job offers in front of us. And I remember there was a 2-man band who were an IT recruitment agency, and they just spoke language which was just completely over my head. And then I went to Randstad Education, and those guys were, I understood what it was that they were trying to do. So for me, I took the Randstad route, and I quickly got it. Like it didn't take much time. It was I don't know if it's blue or white collar. I always get mixed up, but it was fast paced. Like, and it was just literally like flicking out burgers. You'd get an order and you'd flick out another one, an order and you'd flick out another one. And I think in the first 6 months I was there, do you remember when we had the awards? I was the consultant of the year in the whole of Australia for Randstad in that period. And I just thought, this is easy. And I was starting to make money. And I mean, it wasn't anything like when we came back to London, etc. But we started to make good money for when we were out in Australia. And
you did, though. You started making money pretty quick. I didn't make anything really in Oz, did I? I made like $1,000 once when I think they were just being
commission very early doors.
You did all right. You started saving, and then so we did about just over 18 months, and then it was me that was whinging about going home. And but you definitely saw it and was like, I remember we had that one night out and we sat on the balcony and we were like, I fucking don't want to be here. Like, I was just like, what are we doing?
I think you described it really well in one of your episodes as well earlier. It just felt like you were at this amazing party, but you weren't invited. And it was just like you'd got an invite through like your third cousin or something. And it was just, you were an outsider. And I remember we used to go out on Sundays, and like Aussies and the groups that were out there were having so much fun. And you just felt like these little outsiders in that world. And you just spoke, I mean, you and me more than most, but we spoke so much about home.
Yeah.
And you become so patriotic.
Yeah, I remember like we hung around with more English people. You craved football. There was so much we craved. So we came back in the Olympics, which was a pretty big moment to arrive in London. Got ourselves a flat in Clapham with James. And then you stayed with the company, didn't you? You joined a company in education that was based in Melbourne as well.
Yeah, so I had the job by the time I landed. And it was, again, a really small business. There was 5 people in a really tiny office in Shoreditch, but it was great. Like I got to work with the MD every single day, and the business changed a hell of a lot in the 2-3 years I was there. I mean, I came in to set the primary division within their UK arm, and there was pretty much nothing there by the time I started. And by the time I left, it was one of the biggest divisions within the whole business, and we actually saw the growth within that business. It was massive. Like there was this tiny little box in this big office block, and by the time I'd left, they had the whole office block, and those guys have gone off to do some great things off the back of that. But we set the benchmark, and
great business, really good, really good people, yeah. And but you were like the right hand man to the UK MD, like you were totally running. You're basically running it with him, which, again, from my perspective, it was great to see. But it was a similar story to Melbourne, because you caught fire in both jobs really fast. Like, I struggled in both jobs at the beginning, and I remember being in London after 6 months, and when I broke up with my ex, and we were in Clapham, and it was fucking expensive, and you were starting to earn good money. You were already on a bit. I think you had a better basic, and you were earning more money. James, our housemate, was earning more money, and we were surrounded by people earning more money, and I was fucking skinned. I remember, and you had to borrow me. I think it was
you were
800 quid, didn't you, to pay my ex back and then pay some bills, and then I went and got a Halifax account. Do you remember, to get the 100 quid?
To transfer from one to the other.
I've still got that fucking account. I don't use it for anything, but I need to have 2 direct debits because I got £100 in 2013 or whatever it was. So, can you remember why or when you decided to move over to my business, Vanquish? I was trying to remember the exact story around it, but it's hard.
Well, I think it was funny, actually, because I remember vividly when we were walking back towards Clapham one time, and I was going through the numbers with my MD for what I would potentially be earning, and we were talking, right, we're going to be touching 6 figures this year, and that was back in ANZ, and talking to you about it, you were just you at the time. I don't think you not seen it, so you were so dismissive of it at the time, and I was like, no, I think I'm gonna, like, unless my maths are completely wrong, I think we're going to be doing it, and then very quickly, again, earning good money, and it was a great job, but just seeing what you were doing and the numbers that you were firing out there, and also I think the other aspect of it was I'd been in education for so long, and I felt that I was in London, one of the most progressive cities that you could possibly see or be in, and the opportunity to grow was non-stop, and I actually did feel at that point where I was, growth not just from a financial point of view, but also as a business as well, and how much I was taking on from a learning point as well. I felt that I'd come to the end of the stage.
You're basically the lead, like you were the 2 IC, right? And our business at the time, I think we were about 35, 40 people. There was a leadership team building of about 7 or 8 of us. It was a different type of company, wasn't it?
And I remember meeting. I mean, I'd come over and I'd have beers with you guys now and again, and obviously met a few people through that. And then I think you'd set up a meeting with Steve off the back, and I met with Steve, and Steve. I mean, 10 minutes in a conversation with him, I was literally hanging off his every second word. And
Jose Marine.
I didn't even know what in retail and industry and commerce was, but I believe that
I don't think he did, mate. Steve, if you're listening, you were the best Fugazi ever. You made it out as though you had like every retailer waiting to work with us until
literally, I was literally hanging off every word, and you know what, it was. I remember I took a pay cut to come, and it was a substantial pay cut to come into the business, but it wasn't about money at that time. For me, it was very much how much more could I grow as an individual, and how much more could I learn, and it was amazing. Like we had a Premier League All-Star squad at one point, and looking around, some of the people that come out of that business who have gone on to make their own businesses and stuff, and you see that now as a business leader as well. Like we've had people who've come into our business and they've been superstars, and they've gone off and they've created their own, and I kind of, when that moment happened, I think both of us reflected and thought at the moments that, with Vanquish, and when people left and stuff, and it's, people are on a journey, right? And once they off the wagon and off your journey in particular, then they'll crack on doing what they're doing.
You joining that business was big, and this season's been about the kind of human side of being a business owner and leader. And I told a bit about the story to Pete, and I honestly quite struggled with it when I was saying it. But tell us what happened. Like you joined the business in, I think it was September 2014. I think exactly
late September.
It's 6 years ago. Bang on 6 years ago.
And I think it's weird, isn't it? Because it's when something so big happens in your life, your memory or your version of it just becomes so skewed. But there's gaps definitely in like dates, and there's 6 month periods after as well. That is just the most murky period I've ever had. But in short, what happened was November the 11th. November the 11th, and so with me and you working as we did about 6:30 in the evening, and my dad was a black cab driver, and we lived on a big hill, And I always feel, I remember when I used to tell the story, you can feel yourself kind of shaking up a little bit when you're saying it. So, but we lived on a big hill, and he parked his cab on the hill. My brother's car was parked in the drive, and he's gone in and got my brother's keys, and he then reversed my brother's car back out, parked his black cab on the in the car park of where the house is, etc. And then I don't know what happened, but the handbrake mustn't have been on or something. And
was it the black cab or was it the?
No. It was my brother's.
Was it your brother's car?
It was brother's car, yeah. And the handbrake must have come off, and it started going down. And then, look, I mean, what happened next? The exact details, I'm not sure, but I think slipped. Must have tried to stop the car, and the car ran him over. So it was.
But he did stop it from going into a major road, didn't he?
Stopped it, yes, the major road at the bottom of the road. So he must have panicked. He must have run after it, and obviously something happened. And
it was a wet, dark, November night. But you got a call whilst at your desk.
Yeah, at the desk. I remember my little brother called, and I mean, even now when he calls past 6 o'clock nowadays, I'm just like, fuck, what's wrong? But Pam never calls. He never called me ever, and he called at about 6:25, and I picked up the phone. And he was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Working." He was like, "Come home," and I was like, "Fucking, what do you mean come home?" Mine starts racing. And he's like, "Just come home. I'll tell you when you get home." And I was like, "No, you tell me now." And
a couple of hours.
At the same time, I was walking around the corner. Remember the Vanquist office? You go straight down to the bottom, and then there was a cupboard that Mike and people used to get dressed and stuff in. And I don't even know why, but I made the trip into this cupboard, and yeah, he was just like, "Dad's dead," and like literally from the blue, like, and I mean, from that point, I'd walk back. I was shaking. I couldn't even shut my laptop or anything. But I think I caught a glimpse of you in the corner.
I was training someone on something, and I remember looking over, and you look fucking white. Like you know, if you're not watching this, Amar's obviously Indian. He's not white, but you look see-through. I remember looking at your face and going, "Fuck, something's happened." Didn't know what, but I had a weird feeling it was about your dad. I don't know. I told you that after. I just had this weird gut feeling that there's something about home. And then I remember you saying like, "This shit doesn't happen to us," and I was like, "What?" And then
but outside in the lift, I mean, that's basically the last bit I remember for a while. And yeah, I looked at you.
What did you do? What can you remember? What did you do from that moment? I was like, "Shit, go and fix it." Turn around, and I remember just losing it, going home. What did you do?
I was in an absolute daze. I had to get to Euston first, and I just remember seeing people walking past and thinking, no one knows what, like, and this is so true in life in general, like no one knows the individual battle of anyone at any point, right? I mean, no one had a clue what I was going through at that point. And when shock's a weird thing as well. I think when you have something like that happen to you, the only way you can function is because this thing is a blanket and just grips you, and I'm in complete shock, right? So I'm walking down to Euston. All I remember is I was on the train for ages, and I was just looking at a picture of my dad all the way through, and I hadn't cried or anything at this point. I was very just still. And then about 2 minutes before pulling into Coventry, because that's where my brother comes to pick me up, there must have been a seat. My dad's a seat guy, wore a turban. There must have been a seat guy who'd answered the phone just in front of me, and he just started speaking to his kids or something. I don't know what it was, and I just was just in floods of tears. It just hit me at that moment. And then I remember walking up the station. Bav, who works for us now, had called me, and he was just like, "What's going on?" And I was just, I had nothing. And then my brother picked me up, and he, again, you met my little brother. He's a strong individual, and he was, again, nothing. I was trying to get some sort of emotion out of him, nothing. And then as I come onto the street, the whole bottom of the street was all cornered off where he was. He may have even still been there. I'm not sure. But my mother was on her knees outside, and my older brother was like head in hands. And then you go into kind of impact mode, right? It's not about you anymore. It's about others. So pick my mum up, took her inside, pick my brother up, like get inside. And then I think one of the most amazing things comes out of it. Like your family and your friends and your network around you. That's how you get over it. Punjabi families, Indian families, they tend to have a 2 week of mourning where they have prayers for like 2-4 weeks, and people are coming in and out. But it was hard for sure. It was difficult. I'd sleep with my mum. She'd wake up every night, run to the spot where it happened, jump out, get her, bring her back in. But I mean, she just lost her husband of 34 years, right? So Yeah, it was
Crazy.
it was big.
If we go, I remember you coming. I don't know if you came straight back to London after 2 weeks or whether it's 3 or 4. I don't know, but I remember when you came back. Like I remember saying to Steve and that, like, you know, if he doesn't, he might not want to work straight away, but you did. Like you wanted to go straight in, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I felt like before that happened, you were on the up. Like you were definitely like starting to get it because it was a new job, it was a new world, and then you were rocked for a bit, but it didn't. I don't know. It felt like you came back a different person, in my opinion. Like you came back with an extra level of.
It was a weird period. I think. I mean, I said to you anyway that at that point, I was already like I'd had a chat to my uncle and stuff, and we were already thinking, right, we've got to actually do something that's impactful now. Anyway, in general, so I think even at that point, we were thinking about what we could be doing next. But from a work position, it was difficult. I had a team of people that I had to manage. And I don't know, you just gotta get on with it. And I've always been that individual. And
you have, but I don't know how you do it, mate. I mean, you know me. Out of the two of us, I'm the talker of the relationship. Probably, I'm the, you know, you're a lot. You're not exactly quiet in any way, but you are definitely calmer and don't always show your emotion. But to get through that, like, what was going on in your mind what still goes on in your mind to get through that when you're not?
I don't think you ever do. No, I genuinely don't. I don't think there's a moment in your head when you do, when it kind of, you know, it's over or whatever. It really isn't. It just becomes a part of you, right? I genuinely think that. I think, like, I look at my mother now. Like, there's an element of her personality that went the day that my dad died, right? But there's mechanisms that you need to kind of fall on to allow yourself to get through, and you'll have shit days that even now, like I said to you on the way to Ibiza, I'm watching a new series called This Is Us, and the big part of the story is about the death of the father, and it's like therapy. I literally watch it and I'm just like, oh wow, and it hits me every time. And I don't think you ever fully get over it. I just think one thing I think I'm good at is acceptance, right? I've always been quite good. If something, even in work, if something happens catastrophic or something happens, it's acceptance. Life goes on, like it does, and time is always the biggest healer. Like we've been talking, you're going through personal stuff at the moment, and I think the big thing I've kind of said all the way through is that when you're in it, it's difficult. And I was the same. Like that period of 6 months, I wasn't flying work-wise. The level of conversation I was having, sometimes it was up and down. It was. I remember vividly. If I'd had a few drinks, I would just, maybe not emotionally in terms of tears or anything like that, but anger starts to kick in, right? You think about first I had shock, then it was anger, then go back to disbelief, etc. So you go through the stages of mourning, something like that. But time is the biggest healer. It always is, right? And the person I am today is so much more than aware than the person I was in that exact moment. But
yeah, I agree.
But it's experiences in life as well, like resilience, and I think I've had my own experiences in life that I fall back on. I mean, fracturing your back when you're 21, there's a level of resilience that you pick up at that point.
Yeah.
My gran had a stroke on Christmas Day. I mean, there's a level of resilience that we pick up on that point. But that everyone's got their own story of that, right? Like someone who gets bullied at school is their own version of that. Someone whose dad leaves them when they're a kid is their own version of that. So I think you've got to remember as humans as well, like we're going to go through trauma in many shapes and forms as life goes on, but you have to fall back on your levers.
A final interruption to today's episode to introduce Vincere. Vincere is the all-in-one CRM ATS platform built for the recruitment and staffing industry. Now, I first heard about these guys about a year ago. The amount of prospect recruitment agencies and clients I was working with that were telling me they were moving over to Vincere, I had to look into it. And what I found was a business that had a global reach with multiple offices around the world. So they've got this follow the sun methodology, which allows them to support recruitment businesses wherever you are and be in your time zone. But the technology that they've invested in is becoming a disruptor in the space. More and more recruitment businesses are doing this to give their recruiters a competitive advantage. They broke into the G2 Crowd's momentum grid as a market leader based on their reviews from their customers. So the agencies that are using this platform are raving about it. Now, if you're a RAG listener and you're thinking about changing CRM, or you're a new business looking to launch with a new CRM, then I would get in touch with these guys, because if you mention that you're a RAG listener, they're doing an amazing deal. By visiting www.vincere.io/RAG, you can get an exclusive deal which offers 2 months completely free on a 2-year commitment, or 3 months completely free on a 3-year commitment. This applies to all licenses that you've either signed up for now or that you'll add in the duration of the contract. So get on there and have a look. Finally, if you're listening, you're a recruiter and you're thinking, I want to move into a more of a business development role, and I'd like to keep hold of my recruitment knowledge. Well, these guys are recruiting for a BD person, well, multiple roles in both Sydney and London right now. So if you've got a strong recruitment background, you want to move into BD and you want to work for a fast moving tech business that's helping people like you right now, then get in touch via their website, because they're hiring today. Back to the show. What came out of that was, I remember the conversation, like, you know, we're definitely going to build a business now. Like, and we started to go into Hoxo, the recruitment agency, planning mode. And that lasted a couple of years, didn't it? Like 2014 to 2016, end of 2016, we were talking about it fucking daily, pretty much. What do you think that had a bigger impact on you to know that was the entrepreneur was going to be in you now? Like,
I think it was a no-brainer. I talked to my mum regularly about it as well. I mean, obviously to you as well, but I knew there was a bigger calling, without sounding too cheesy, but there was something else that I needed to kind of push on and do. And look, regardless of if anything I did or didn't happen to my dad, I think the outcome would have been the same. I think our nature was always to push on and to build something. But at that point, I think
it felt like
there were points though that when work started to go, and again, you've got to remember, I came into business and there wasn't a contact in the system for what we were trying to build, and it was
Steve hadn't cracked the whole of retail.
It was. I remember I'd come in and we're talking September, when I was actually all right at that point, and I had a laptop. I was looking at Phil Carden, if you know Phil Carden, great guy, and it was just right, sell the competency framework that we had, and it was like, wow, it's difficult, and then you start to doubt yourself a little bit. I mean, I was, like you said, 2IC in my previous business. I knew I was good at what I did, and I came into a place where I was, you know, here's a book, go, and you had to kind of really go at it. And I think I had a moment around April time when the business, we went to India to scatter my dad's ashes at the point, and I had a board full of interviews. My team had it all, and then I came back and we had nothing. For literally everything had gone out the window. And Miriam, who you know as well, she just joined the business, and me and her literally had a chat, and I think I was literally in breakdown for about an hour. But resilience kicks in, but like with recruitment, you have to keep doing the right things and the process, and then things kicked in, and it got exciting. Like even with Banquets, we weren't like, I think we were both very content in the business that we were. We knew we wanted to do something different, but it wasn't like we're going to do it tomorrow.
No,
we had to learn so much. Like there was so much good stuff that we managed to soak in from those guys. Like I said, I mean, I had game time with Steve Garner, who for me was one of the best in the business, and every day I managed to sponge, learn, and you know, we wouldn't have started the businesses that we have today and do what we do today if we weren't for some of the people that we met along the way.
No, and we're not going to have time to go into everything about Hoxo, but I mean, we were both at slightly different points though, wasn't we? I think I was definitely at a point where I was questioning whether I still wanted to do the job that I was doing, and actually doing it for myself didn't excite me that much. Definitely being my own boss excited me more than, and I'd spent so much time looking at social and all these things, and I got that excited. I remember when I first told you about it, you were a bit like, whatever. Like, I just remember your face. Like, I know you well enough to know that.
Yeah, the cold, like, a nod, but like,
yeah, it'll burn him. You almost like, you do this squint, like you're just like, oh, shut up.
I know exactly.
You're bored. You were like, he'll burn himself out with chat. When did you realize I was serious about this, and you started to think, well, actually, you might have something?
To be honest, I think when we started, I didn't get it. Like, I was a bit like, oh, what are you on about? Like, I mean, I can't. We talk about like Instagram and like influencers and all that type of stuff, but I just didn't get I honestly just didn't get it. I'll be honest. It was just, I thought, okay, cool, but you're gonna, exactly what you said. I thought you're gonna burn yourself out, but fair play to you. Like you went, and you weren't like something that was on a whim either. Like you bought courses, you you'd been learning, you'd been reading about stuff. You worked 24 hours basically to get an MVP together, right? To go to market with, and then you sold it. And then you went out and you sold about 5 of them in month 1, and it was like, all right. I mean, there's some legs in it, and at that point, I'll be honest, I thought we'd always revert back, right? I thought we'd always go back to what we knew, but it snowballed. It really did, and I think with Hoxo and with what we're trying to achieve, I'm reading a book at the moment. Listen to a book, No Rules by the Netflix owners, and it's so apparent. Like, it talks about the Blockbuster story. It talks about how Blockbuster had the opportunity to buy Netflix before it actually did what it did, and it talks about a bit where businesses will kind of fall by the wayside if they don't change, and I think our industry is ripe for change. I really do, and I think you taught me that more than anything else. Like I was still, quite happy in the crux of billing. I was doing well. I was on the up. I could have done that for another few years, but I think what we're trying to achieve right now is so much bigger, because I think it's industry change, and actually you look 3.5 years into what this industry was when it talked about marketing and when it talked about personal brand, and I think you've got to give yourself a pat on the back that actually your idea is transformed and allowed other players to come through and allowed it to be better in a way, right? And I think the way business development has been done and the way that delivery is done through community building, like, it's what we're doing is for me right at the forefront of this sector. I really believe it.
I think so. I think we've had our ups and downs, mate. Fucking hell, we've had enough of them, and we've still got loads ahead of us. And but it is amazing to see. Like, I look back at that podcast I recorded with Alex Andrew earlier this season, and the fact that she's created a company, the guy she's not even met, she hasn't picked up the fucking phone, and she's done 36K in a
this is what you tell me now. Like, I'm running sales now for Hoxo, and if someone tomorrow said to me, we are turning down, we no personal branding, you're going to go to the old ways of doing sales, there's no marketing, I'd have to tell you to fuck off. I genuinely would, and I would fight as a business leader. I would fight every second corner to hold on to that investment. So I don't think it's going to be any different. And back to your question, like, what did I think at that moment? I thought it was, like you said, hot air completely. But but it wasn't like you had just. It wasn't. You're not an individual who just kind of gets excited by something and just, goes on to the next shiny thing. I've said it to you before, you're a BA in the making, you're a meticulous thinker, right? So if you are coming up with an idea, there's bones to it. And for that reason, you'll never be satisfied with the business we are today, because you'll always want it to be the business that is required for tomorrow. So, and I think the blend between us works because of that.
Well, I've mentioned the book Traction a lot on the podcast, and I think that when we both read that systems and what do you call it, integrator and the visionary piece is massive in it. So my role has been always kind of thinking for tomorrow, trying to keep people thinking bigger, trying to find new services and products. And with that comes frustration. Sometimes you question yourself, am I going fucking mad? Like you do. But then when it works out, it's great. But then without someone next to you that can make sense of it and actually just make sure things get done, you can be a loose cannon. And you've been that integrator. So I guess that's one of the final questions. How do you keep yourself in check, and how do you keep the role because you're doing loads of different things. How do you manage that? Like, what's your kind of mindset towards it?
I think process is something that I've been quite good at, and I've always been good at juggling lots of different plates. Like I can see a architectural view of something, whether it's in the job that I'm in there or whether it's in the business that I'm in now. I feel like I can see all the moving parts. I won't necessarily have the complete detail in each aspect of it, but I can see it and I get it. I understand how it kind of works. And I think once you know that, you can keep in check with certain parts of the puzzle. And I think some of the things that we've implemented, I think Traction itself is brilliant, is massive. Like, I mean, I think we had an honest conversation as the leadership group the other day, and we've kind of fell by the wayside over the last 3 months on traction, and we're feeling it, right? And you can feel that. So, but I know we'll spring back to that because it's there, and like many others, I use systems, I use things like Trello, I go through things in a meticulous way. What I don't think I'm great at is I'm not going to be the person who comes up with, that groundbreaking idea in a way, but I will talk through with it, and I get it enough to be able to add value where we do. And I also, I think you've got to have that blend, that kind of ability to challenge each other. And I don't know, I mean, I always say starting a business with your best mate is risky, right? Starting a business with your family is risky, but
massively,
I think we're fairly self-aware enough to know that actually it isn't personal. It's what we're trying to do is better for the business, and we have to challenge each other, because if we don't at the top table, then it's gonna really hurt lower down the line. So,
what's the future look like for you? Like, what's driving you in the long term that people might be interested in?
I think future Hoxo wise is, I genuinely don't think we scratched the surface. Like, there are so many businesses in the sector, and albeit I think we're changing the way the sector is thinking about certain things. The education piece is really starting to go on the up. I think to actually partner with more and more businesses and trying to support them with what we're trying to do is massive, and I can see that's going to be.
I think that's the bit in it. Like, I think that's. I wake up every day and I'm like, it's fucking stressful and there's loads going on, but like, I genuinely want our clients to do well. Like, that's all it matters. If they're not doing well and they're not happy, it's shit. Like, it just, and it's never going to be perfect. You're always going to have issues in every company. But if you genuinely wake up, like, money isn't the fucking thing, is it? Like, I was on the Scott Parsons in my academy. Hopefully you're listening, Scott. We were just chatting on the academy before this, and his team got an inbound retainer of 30 grand last week from the content he's been doing. It was amazing. Forsyth Barnes, like, great business growing. But he was like, money doesn't, like, it was probably the driver that initially made him start a company to be wealthy or whatever. But once you start a company, we didn't make any profit for the first few years, and only now are we starting to be able to grow because of the investment of it. But it isn't about, like, what net income have we got? Like, it just doesn't, we never have that chat, do we? Like,
again, it's about, we spoke in Ibiza about the flywheel of fulfillment, right? And it's balance with relationships, it's balance with work, finance, health, all these type of different things, right? I think, and the big balance in giving back, like, and being able to people want to make others feel fulfilled. That will make them feel more fulfilled, right? And I think that for us has always been a big driver, whether it's in recruitment, whether it's in teaching, whether it's in ripping up carpet. It's always, actually, how can we change how others are feeling in that position? I think outside of work, I'm looking at buying a place at the moment in North London. So there's some
seriousness
over there. That's
finally getting responsibility in your life.
Lots of responsibility. Responsibility is coming left, right, and centre at the moment. But no, I think at the moment we're in a good place where we're at, and we just got to keep trying to grow, really, and trying to move forward.
Yeah, I think there's this kind of. I'll say.
How about you?
Me.
What's your kind of future kind of thinking? What do you see?
I see. I genuinely, I agree with. I think we are changing the way people think, and I think that makes that for me is fulfilling to know that people are. I got a message about 10 minutes ago of someone, voice note, saying, "Sean, love the stuff you're doing, and I'm way behind it. Like, keep going," kind of thing. And it's brilliant to know that we're touching people, we're helping people. But I don't think we're anywhere near it. Like, I'm frustrated with half the stuff we're doing and half the stuff I'm doing. And, I never feel like I'm on this wheel of, it's like an energy wheel of like a hamster, but you're never anywhere near where you want to be. And that there's almost like a perfectionism element to it. But long term, I want to be able to prove we can change this industry, prove we can build a great business. Like, that's what I care about. Like, don't know how big it's going to be, but a business that is substantial enough to then invest in other people. Like we've said that we want to be investors in the future, and I want to be able to help other people build businesses that change their lives and the lives of others. And that's as simple as that, whether it's recruitment companies, marketing companies, I don't know, but I can't imagine we'll retire at any point and just chill out. I think we'll always want to be plugging into something. But
I think so.
I've got 6 to 10 years probably of the pace that we're going at now before I can imagine things need to change a bit, because my hair's gone grey. It's going to fall out soon, and then I'm just screwed. I've had enough. All right. So what final thing then? What are you doing in your spare time that people might like? What are you doing to upskill yourself? You're always on different things. Like, what are you reading? What are you listening to? What's going on for you at the minute?
I've always tried to do two things. I've always tried to read a book, and I try to audio one. So in the morning I try to audio, and then I try reading at night. At the moment, the Netflix book. I always enjoy stories of real, like autobiographies, biographies should be one as well. So Steve Jobs, one that I listened to recently that I absolutely loved. Branson was a great one as well. But I like hearing real stories, because you can have familiarity with that as well. Like, you can see actually parts of where they are within your own building blocks. And then from a reading point, similar. Like, I'm more factual rather than not. And then other things, finding balance, mate, I think is things. I mean, we've probably guilty as any to not take time off, but I've got a dog, I've got a beautiful other half as well. Trying to find time to be more present when you're with those individuals. I think we're really guilty of not doing that, and trying to switch off to be present with those individuals is something that I'm working on. I don't think I'm quite there yet. But
maybe we should get Jess on the next episode, and she can tell me what.
Well, that's it. It'll be a much more honest appraisal.
That'd be a really good episode. Yeah. Amar, it's been a pleasure. It's weird for me to be able to talk to you, but I've enjoyed it as well. I've heard things probably from an angle you've never even said to me, and we've had about 1 billion conversations.
I appreciate it, mate. And on the podcast front, mate, I genuinely think you're impacting people, right? I listen to it every morning, and there's every guest, whatever their story is, has been awesome. And we've had some. I've really enjoyed this series, and I do hope that if people have had experiences within death, and the people, feel free to reach out, because
that's what I was going to say. If anyone does want to, like, if they're going through they're grieving of a loved one, or they've got something major going on and they're struggling to cope with it, and you're not a therapist, but you've been through some shit stuff that you've managed to. I think you've come through it better than anyone I've met. You're open to a chat, right? I imagine.
Yeah, of course.
Providing we can find the time, but you'll find the time. So, mate, thank you so much. This is going out pretty soon, guys. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed today. I know it's slightly different. My business partner, someone who isn't a recruitment owner right now, but has been a leader in the industry and is on a mission to support the industry like me. But also someone who doesn't necessarily put himself out as much as me online. So you've probably not heard the story before, but like I always say, I'm not asking you to spend any money to listen to this, but I do ask you to share it. So if someone you think would benefit from Amar's story, whether they're a recruiter or not, get it out to them. Hopefully they will benefit, because the whole point of this is to help more people. We know right now we're in the midst of the most difficult period, probably being a business owner you could ever have. And the shit that's going on online. I put a post up yesterday about how Sky News is the most depressing feed ever, because it is. And the scaremongering, the second wave, there's so much talk right now that, that can penetrate us there in the brain. But we've also got lives, we've got families, we've got kids, we've got husbands, we've got wives, we've got shit that needs to be done. And keeping all of that going at the same time is a real challenge. So well done to every one of you that's doing it. And I hope this season has helped so far. I'll be back again next Wednesday. But in the meantime, you stay safe, and I'll see you soon.